Oh boy, we got a lot to talk about. This is great.
Awesome. All right, let's get started. All right. Bienvenida and welcome to another special episode of Spirit of Avalor with your hosts, Lauren
and Becca.
And today we have a very special guest, someone who's made our lives a lot easier over the last couple months that we've known about him. And that is by providing audio description for TV, movies, and I think books too. I'm not sure, but welcome, Roy.
Hey, thanks so much. It's great to be a part of your podcast here. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. So we just like to kind of ask the common question, and this is one that you can answer with as much detail or as little as you're comfortable with. What were you like as a kid? Were you a Disney kid? Did you like to tell stories? Like, what got you? What were you like?
I've got a few memories that I think relate to voiceover work. When I was a kid, I found a recorder, an audio recorder, and I started playing around with it. And at the time, I really admired my older cousins that were from New York. And so I made up this character called the New York Ghost. And it was probably the worst equivalent of a podcast you've ever heard, but I had so much fun with it as a kid. And it helped me kind of dream and imagine and play with all sorts of different, whether it was an accent or a character or a storyline that I'd make up. That was really a very enjoyable part of my growing up, playing around with that recorder.
Oh my gosh, you and I were best friends. I did the same thing. Not the ghost thing, but I recorded so many stories and...
Yes, me too.
Yeah?
Yes.
What kind of stories were you both telling?
I was pretty much doing Disney fan fiction, if you will. Like, I was doing Little Mermaid ones, Aladdin, some Sabrina the Teenage Witch, some Secret Road of Alex Mack, some, Mary Poppins a little bit here and there. So, and then I gradually got into original stuff, obviously, as I got older, but then you kind of take from what you know and kind of try and think of things like, what if this happened, or what if that didn't happen, or what if it happened this way? You kind of...
Wow. Yeah, very cool.
So...
Yeah, and I did a lot of Secret Garden and Christie and some Alex Mack and just a whole lot of different stuff.
Wow, that's great. So, yeah, you were definitely kind of taking what you knew and making it your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still do that. We both still do that now. I mean, that hasn't changed. I mean, things, obviously, our interests have changed, but we still do that now. We do audio fan fiction. I almost said for, but I don't mean that. I mean about Elena of Avalor, which is what we mainly talk about on the podcast, but it can be general Disney, too, so.
Oh, gotcha.
And Craig knows about this, so it's all good.
Oh, very nice. There's, I guess, my biggest Disney connection at the Great Movie Ride down in Disney World. I played a host and a gangster, and that was my big Disney connection. They closed that ride a few years ago, but boy, was that a fun job.
It seems like they're always closing stuff. It's like, really? Come on, you can make room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I was never really a big park kid. I was my it's short and sweet. My Disney story is that I grew up on a steady diet of the movies, obviously, as most of us did. Not all of us, but most of us. And, I didn't know any different. Like, I knew of the books, like the Disney books that were written. I knew, I had Ariel, I had, the Winnie the Pooh plot, all that stuff. But I didn't know about anything about the parks. So when my papa took me when I was about 12, I had no idea what it was all about. Like, I really didn't like it. Like, it just felt like something got flipped on its head, kind of like Alice in Wonderland for me, but not in a good way. Like, it was just really like, what the? And we spent probably 2 hours there, and then went back to the park, went back to our hotel, and swam. It was me and my best friend. He had taken us. And I mean, we were grateful that he did, but it just didn't match up with what I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I went when I was 9, and I don't really remember that trip, but I went recently, about a month ago, and it was awesome, and I had so much fun, but I still regret I did not do audio descriptive, and I should have.
Oh, really?
I told you. That still baffles me, Meow. I love it to pieces, and I'm not trying to be mean, but that, still baffles me.
because they have that available, you know, and that would have made like the rides and stuff so much better.
It would have made Peter Pan's flight better. That's evil.
No, I got nauseous on Peter Pan.
Well, how great that they have that option. The accessibility at the parks is something that they, whether or not you use it or not, it's an enhancement. It's not a requirement. But how cool that they're taking the time to do that and help give you the experience that exactly. You know, some of the sighted people have.
Yes, and they are so great with you know, with being, you know, just
accommodating.
Really accommodating, yeah. And like on a lot of the rides, especially for like Peter Pan and like, you know, Little Mermaid, the floors move. They have moving like sidewalk floors. But I have trouble like balancing and can't really do those too well. Mm-hmm. We didn't even have to ask them to turn them off. They did that when they saw me. They turned off the moving part so that I could get on the ride.
Very cool.
And not
that's great.
And
oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
So, did you describe, we're going to do that in a sec, but did you describe the episode of NCIS New Orleans with the people who were at a veterans hospital or something like that, and they were trying to discover why this one guy who had killed this one veteran, and it turned out that they had electrical chips placed in their prosthetic legs?
Wow, I'm on NCIS, not NCIS New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember who the audio describer is, but one of the things that I'm definitely active in, specifically in Twitter, and there's going to be a Facebook page coming shortly, where we connect the audio description narrators with the shows, because I don't even know who does NCIS New Orleans.
Awesome.
You know, it's like. So the idea that, you know, I wish I could tell you, and I'm sure I know who it is, I just don't exactly know. And so very slowly, I see a lot of narrators starting to come out and say, oh, I did this, or I did this. And you know, we've got that hashtag Know Your Narrator that
I've seen it,
connect.
Yeah.
So I hate to answer your question with, that wasn't me, but the cool thing is we're going to find out. And, you know, my dream world in an ideal future is where you'd be able to say who does audio description for NCIS New Orleans for this episode, and you'd be able to find out right away.
Yeah.
I mean, I got introduced to audio description. I was at a pre-college program back in the early 2000s, and back then I had a lot more vision than I do now. In my left eye, we both have retinopathy of prematurity, so our vision kind of went. I mean, Becca has more than I do, but kind of went gradually, and we had multiple surgeries done, all that stuff. And so we, are you okay, Mia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just making sure. But so we, so for me personally, even though I could still see a lot back then, I was going to like I said, I was going to do a pre-college program for the visually impaired, where you learned how to manage money, you learned how to cook, you learned how to keep a budget, like cross the street the right way, all that stuff. And we, you know, had off on the weekends for the most part. It was like, you know, kind of like just like college, like I said. And so somebody who was staying with us, like, you know, like a dorm mom or whatever you call those people, you know, like the monitors, they would go, do you want to watch, you know, a movie? And I was like, yeah, sure. So they're going through all these movies, and I picked Mary Poppins, because that's one of my favorite Disney movies. So she puts it in, and, like, you know, she leaves, because obviously we can all handle ourselves. We were, like, in our late teens or our 20s. So I'm sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden, like, you know, I hear someone start saying stuff, and I was like, what the... Not like that, but I was like, what's this? And then I realized, obviously, what it had to be, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. And it made me love that movie 10 times more than I did before, and I loved it. Like, it actually got me through 2 back-to-back retina surgeries when I was a teenager. I didn't even know about it till then. Like, till I was a preteen. you would think I grew up with Mary Poppins, but honestly, I knew what it was. I heard some of the songs, but I'd never seen it until I was 11 or 12. And that's what got me through that horrible summer. But I never seen Descriptive back then. That was when I saw it, like, in regular and just, still appreciate it. But then when I saw it in Descriptive about, like, 5-10 years later, I was like, okay, this is even more cool than I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my first movie that I saw in Descriptive was at a camp at the Georgia School for the Blind, and it was Toy Story. And I'd never really seen a movie, done like that before, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just so cool. And I could sit in the back of the room, and I didn't have to sit, like, up front with my nose pressed to the screen to see what was going on, And I was like, this is amazing. And then I kind of didn't, use it for a long time after that, because it was just getting started, back then, and so there wasn't a lot of movies available like that yet. And then my first theater movie at the theater using it was I Can Only Imagine. And I sat there and cried through like the first 15 minutes of it, not because of what was going on in the movie, but because I was, for the first time, really getting to experience a movie, like, and knowing exactly what was going on instead of missing 50% of the movie visually.
Yeah, my first theater experience with it was actually Soul Surfer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which is, I love the movie. It's amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, a young woman named Leilani did that.
She is, I think, also the same narrator who worked on Toy Story.
Yes.
If it wasn't Toy Story 1, it was Toy Story 2.
Yes.
So you both had experience with her. She is, boy, what a talent. She is great,
nice.
Isn't she?
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I am, please correct me, but she may have also done the Hunger Games. I'm not sure. I might be getting that wrong with Gailey Heidemann, but I maybe, but one of them did it.
Very cool. And how great that you know these names. I get so excited to know that this conversation is talking about not only audio description, but what I'm calling the quality and the excellence of it, because those narrators, they're top notch. Hopefully, and I'm assuming, just because I know their work, that they bring you into the story. They don't stand out. They don't shine. It's all about making sure that you, as the audience member, are experiencing and fully immersed in the story. And I'm so happy to hear that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's one where I got a shock. And I was so happy about this. Oh gosh. So, a friend of mine, not Becca, unfortunately, but she knows now. But another friend of mine, actually a mutual friend of ours, her and I, we were at her house, and we were hanging out, and we watched a movie. And she's totally blind. She's been blind since birth, never saw anything. So she's been more into audio. She knew about audio description before I did, and I experienced it, at her house as well. She had some stuff. So anyway, I said, "Oh, do you want to watch Pocahontas in Descriptive?" And she's like, "Oh, hey, I never saw it like that before. I haven't seen it in a long time. Let's do it." So, we're sitting there, we're watching it, we're having fun, laughing at the stuff that that I knew of, from when I saw it, theaters, and obviously when it was on home video and all that. But throughout most of the movie, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I know this voice. I've heard this voice before. The person narrating, I'm so sorry, the person describing it. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, no, they wouldn't do that. There's no way that this cannot be happening. But, and so at the end, I found out I was right, and I screamed so loud. And it was because Irene Bedard, the voice of Pocahontas, described her own movie.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's never been done before.
No, and it made it so authentic, Roy. No, not that you aren't, because you're awesome, but this...
No, I hear you. This is wonderful news. I had no idea. That's great.
Because who else knows this character? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just... And you could tell that her emotional investment in it was legit and authentic. It was just... Obviously, she was trying to laugh and she did a good job, but then when it got really serious and it was just, she was adding her own little touches to it, and I was like, okay, this has to be no other narrator, no other describer has ever, for the most part, I've never heard.
No, you can say that. Yes.
Any other narrator do this in my whole couple of years of knowing about this, and this was back in 2012 when I saw this, but that way, but she brought an authenticity to this that I've never heard anywhere else. I mean, it was just amazing, and I was actually able to thank her via my one other friend who does a Disney podcast on one Saturday morning. Shout out to Tim Nidell. You're cool, man. So he thanked her for me. He actually read her my comment, spent 5 minutes on it, didn't go quickly or anything. He wanted her to really understand and she was really touched. She was I really am glad she appreciated it. She's I wanted to do it because I wanted to give them the full experience of it, and there was no one better. She would not let anyone else do it. She wanted to do it herself.
Wow. Oh, that's great. Oh, This is super new. I had not heard of that. That's wonderful.
And of course, that led us to think, what if Linda Larkin did Aladdin? She played Jasmine. What if Jodie Benson did Ariel? That would have been amazing.
And now we're what if Amy Carrero, who voices Elena, what if she was able to describe an episode or two?
Yes. Oh, that would be amazing.
Yes. Well, why not? And I gotta say, as you both are fans of the show, that when it comes to audience feedback like this, I really think whether it's Disney or any of the networks or the streaming services, they all really hear and they listen, and I think that it really does make a difference. And so why not? I mean, you've got your own podcast here, and I'd be curious to know if you reached out to Disney Accessibility and to find out what they'd say. Why not? If you haven't already.
Well, no, I'm not saying anything. I thought you were going to say something, Becca, so I was waiting for you to say something.
Yeah, we actually wrote a letter to them.
Yeah?
After Disney, okay, so you probably know this, that there are certain stations that are mandated.
Yes.
To have audio descriptive. Well, Disney got taken off that list. So nothing of Disney, the first 14 episodes of Elena of season 2 were described. Yep. And now the back half of season 2 is not. Because Disney's not on the list of mandated stations. And we wrote to them, and we're very upfront and told our stories of how audio descriptive helps us, and they're slowly bringing it back.
How great is it when all shows are going to have audio description? It's not a mandate; it's just a given. It's they recognize
that.
Yeah, it's like a.
We shouldn't, we should be able to turn on a show, no matter what it is, and turn on the audio descriptive on. And I'm not talking Netflix or any of the streaming services. I'm talking regular TV. And we should be able to turn on, whatever show we want to watch, and turn on the audio descriptive and have it be there.
Yeah. And the good news is that I know that closed captioning is a different disability, but I think it's a good example of seeing how there's two sides, I think, to closed captioning and how it could relate to audio description. I think that pretty much any channel has audio description. I think it's kind of universal. And correct me if I'm wrong, but for audio description, there is a plan that the previous administration mandated to the FCC that over the course of so many years that it was going to increase, that the accessibility requirements would be mandated, but the intention wasn't to have it mandated. The intention was to have it just the standard. And
because
I really have such positive vision that is not that far away, and I'm so sorry that you've lost your the episodes of your show. That's not cool, especially since they had it.
Yeah,
they take it away.
Yeah, they had it, and because of that, we've been getting flack, and I'm not sorry for even saying this, but we've been getting flack from listeners of our podcast, and not. I'm sorry, I'll be more specific. Not just like listeners out there, but there's another podcast of hosts who have been treating us very badly, and we got accused of neglecting parts of episodes because they think it's our own agenda to do what we want. And I was like, well, first of all, it's our podcast. We can talk about what we want. We should be able to talk about what happened and then say, oh, well, we would have wanted this, or maybe what if this happened. Yeah. That's creative license. That's not us saying we know they work hard. We respect everyone on that team. But when we don't have audio description, we can't do it. There's no way. Like, for example, I won't go too far in this, obviously, sorry. But, for example, the episode that just aired, or technically was supposed to air, but did not, but we could see it on demand.
Yeah, Disney Junior aired the wrong one.
Yes. But the episode, Luna's Big Leap, it was so visual. We're not going to be able to do it. I mean, we'll be able to do it eventually. It will get done. But we're not going to worry about it. We're not going to focus on it. We're going to focus on the ones we can actually do and really give attention to, and really give the listeners what they've been expecting, which is a really good review. Yeah. And I think that's okay, because I want to be able to actually do Luna's Big Leap justice, not because I liked it so much, because I really didn't, but because they work hard on it, and Yvette Nicole Brown is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, but we can't, I mean, there's, I have some vision, but when something is very visual and very quick, like Elena is, and this episode was a Jacqueline-centered episode, and Jacquelines are basically flying
jaguars.
And they fly and they loop and they just do all stuff, and it's very, very hard to keep up, so I can't see it and then turn around and describe it. Like, I have to see something like 40 times, to be able to describe it, and
you have to like it to be able to do that.
Yeah, it has to be like a simple, like a song sequence or something very simple for me to be able to do it.
Not in content.
Yeah. And
no, not in content, but like in
content, but in visual.
Yeah, yeah.
Visually.
Yeah.
And, this wasn't, because there was just so much going on at once. And, there was dialogue, but there wasn't a whole lot of it. And so it just made it very difficult. And so we tend to review the episodes that have a lot of dialogue in them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that have descriptive dialogue in them, actually, because they do that a lot, too, which is really cool.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And that does help, especially since they're still doing the backlog of all this stuff, and, they'll get to it, but...
Yeah, but we shouldn't, we turned on, I don't know if you've heard of the show In the Dark.
Yes.
Don't get us started.
Don't get us started on that.
Actually, no, you can't get us started because we want your opinion, but go ahead.
Well, from what I understand, In the Dark has a blind character in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
And it's not played by a blind actor.
There are two different blind characters. One we love, one we can care less about. And the main character is who we can care less about because she's not played by a blind person.
No.
And that's not the only reason. Obviously, we don't know the actor. She seems nice. That's not it. It's just that they should have gotten someone who is actually blind. If they couldn't, they should have had her do more research, because there are a lot of inaccuracies. A lot of inaccuracies. And...
Yeah.
It's different when it's something made up or something that, but with something like this, you want to be as accurate as possible. And it's really sad when you have an adult character who's supposed to be blind, not played by someone blind, and does stuff that we do not do. But then you have a 12-year-old who is really blind, plays a character who is blind and does so well. We love Callie. Yeah. She is amazing. Yeah. She's the one representing us. Not the other one.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was the first episode, the very first one that aired, was not in audio descriptive. It was not. But then when we watched the second and the third one, the third one was.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got so, like, we were just so excited that it was available that way. And, it shouldn't be like that. We should be able to turn it on and have it be there, and not get excited about it because it's just something that is, always there, like closed caption,
Oh, yeah. And also, they, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to make this for a sec, but, like, not just inaccuracies, like, with what they're doing with her. Murphy, I'm sorry, I got to be more specific, so I don't think I mean Callie, because Callie's awesome. It's, the other thing is her character itself, the way they wrote her, it's sort of a slap in the face to us because, yes, we get angry, yes, we don't like the circumstance we're put into sometimes, heck, and all that, but we don't drink to get drunk because of that. We don't have sex what I'm trying to say. That's not who we are. Most of us anyway. So it's like, why portray that and show that and make people think that's how we deal with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like, I haven't seen the show, but it sounds like when you say inaccuracies, those are stereotypes about disabilities, specifically blind.
Yeah, like, for example, and we want to ask you a couple more questions, but, so to give you a little bit of an idea, she went into a buffet. Her boyfriend took her to lunch, and she wanted to get it on her own, which is fine, I do that too, but I also know when to ask for help in those situations. So instead of her putting her hand, like, on the edge of the, the containers of the food, like when you go to, take some at a buffet setting, she puts her hand in it.
In the food.
I've never seen anyone, now by accident, obviously sometimes that does happen, but this was on purpose. As in, she couldn't be bothered to actually just feel along the edge and go around and find the tongs or find the spoon or find whatever it was, and, and then try to use it. If she would have done that and then some of it would have slipped off the plate, that would have been fine, because that does happen. I've had that happen. So that would have been okay. That would have been acceptable for her situation, but not what they had her do. And it just, and then they did something really stupid where they had, I don't know if it was the boyfriend, I don't know if it was the manager, but they asked them to leave, and then they try to manhandle her, and I'm like, that's not what you do. You don't grab.
No.
People, that's just not what you do. And especially to someone who can't see, then you're going to have even more issues. And I was just like, really? That does, this is not right.
One of the cool things that I'm learning about in specifically on social media and some of the events that I'm going to here in Los Angeles, the representation of disabilities is taking how do I say this? It means something, and I get the sense that the movie industry and the TV industry is taking notice of it. And one of the things that one of the reasons that I see the positive in this is that our entertainment industry is growing. I think about even 10, 15 years ago when the majority of shows didn't even offer audio description.
Yeah.
Specifically for what you're talking about with these shows, I really do get the sense that the networks, the production companies, the TV shows, the filmmakers, they are listening, and they do hear, and they're messing up. And the cool thing about it is that when there's a mistake, they catch it, and hopefully they listen. And if they don't, I think that the audiences respond, whether it's by not watching the show or by saying, hey, here's some things that, this portrayal, and here's why. And it's not rewriting the story. It's not changing the character. I hear what you're saying. I think what I'm hearing is that this, and I don't want to pick on that one particular show, but I just mean in general that a lot of shows are aware of issues. I even this morning, I think I read on social media that the majority of white men are showrunners, and it's like, what, really? And it's like that. The fact that that's a surprise is a good thing, in the sense that, oh, we don't want that. We're now waking up and aware of, oh, women and people of color can be showrunners, and maybe we should be more representative of that. Mm-hmm. And I can't help but think that that's going to spill over into the disability world when it comes to representation.
Yeah.
And the representation that I think that you're talking about, the fair representation, where you can be immersed in the story about a blind character and not have to worry about some really egregious stereotypes. And again, I'm not picking on that show. I just mean in general that I really do see the hope, and I have to believe that. And forgive me, I'm going to go off on a little tangent.
It's okay.
The Television Academy and the Easter Seals Society had a panel that talked about disability and representation.
Yeah.
And while that show wasn't specifically mentioned, I've never been more inspired and positive to know, at least just from those few panel members. It was a showrunner from Grey's Anatomy. There was a woman who made her own content, and it got sold to Sundance, and she happens to be deaf, and she told a story that it was about her, and instead of having a deaf person and a person who's not deaf, she had two deaf people. And it's like, oh, people are like, oh yeah, you can do that. It's so these lines are very slowly starting to change, I believe. And I'm a sighted person. I provide audio description for the blind, but I'm not blind. Why should only sighted people provide audio description narration? There are blind people that can do this. There's a voice talent that I know that I've hired for some casting. She happens to be blind, and she's
Is
as
her
solid
name
as...
Dion Kwan?
No, I don't know Dion Kwan. But it's great that there was an actress that was on NCIS that was blind. She was featured on the 300th episode of NCIS.
Wow.
So that was Marilee Talkington, and so there's how great that, I mean, without even hesitating, you're like, oh, what about this? What about this blind narrator? Or what about this blind voice actor? It's like, this is, and with this is not a separate thing from people of color or women. There could be a blind person of color who's a woman that can narrate. It's like, this is all this kind of awareness that is happening now is so exciting for me. And it's great to see that people like you are talking about it and saying, here's what we want. And so, I mean, there's so many different angles to go here. I'm sorry for going off on the tangent here.
No, apologize. Don't apologize. So, one thing, I have always wanted to do voiceover. I've been, just dabbling in it. I don't mean professionally, obviously. I mean, like, just, like I said, doing audio and fan fiction as I call since I was like 14. And I'm curious as to how you got into it, because I listened to your demo and I feel horrible for even saying this, but I had no idea who any of those characters were. You did a great job, but I guess because my tastes are a little different, like, I didn't know. I thought at one point I did, but then I was like, no, I'm probably wrong. So how did you get into it, and what was your first voiceover role like for animation?
Oh, for animation, one of the bigger roles I did was for a video game, and I played Raphael for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love TMNT. Oh my gosh. Grew up with it. Grew up with it in the 80s and 90s. I tried some of the different adaptations. Didn't really like them too much because I was kind of pretty much set, for what I had already seen and what I had already been exposed to. And I watched the 2012 series a little bit for Rob Paulson and Mae Whitman, who are two of my favorite voiceover actors, or people. Like, they're just awesome. And I was actually able to talk to Rob for like 5 minutes on someone's podcast, and which was amazing. And he's a great guy. You've been on his, that's where I first heard you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was on his podcast, and I was like, I am so glad that he had you on. You talked about audio description and everything, because he didn't. It was great that he now knows about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and, he's another voice talent.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. I grew up with him technically, like hearing him. I mean, you know,
That's
and stuff. So what other animation voiceover have you done? Just maybe I will recognize something if you actually say something else, like if I actually hear you say the name of something, because usually I'm good at that, but for some reason with this reel I just couldn't place it.
Well, I hate to be a tease, but there's a few things that are going to be coming out in the next few months that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to share with you what those are.
No, I mean like anything else before that you've done, like that you can actually talk about, like the ones you've already done and people have seen or heard.
Gotcha. So I've done some video games, and
I don't know why I thought it was
more
animation, like cartoon, because I thought I heard, for some reason I thought in the demo it sounded all like, you know, animated show demos, not cartoon, not like video game.
Gotcha. Yeah, for the animation demo. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't have to get it. It's our phone.
Oh, gotcha. So that animation demo is what I wanted to do for that was put out my best samples of the kinds of voices that are within what I call my wheelhouse. Like those are the voices that give it's kind of like a showcase, because it's my demo. It's my showcase, so I can do with it what I want.
Yeah.
So those were kind of, it's almost, instead of saying here's what I've done, it's like here's what I do.
Okay.
And so that particular demo that you heard, I don't think I have the other what I'm calling the historical demo of actual work. Right now I've kind of put that away so that I can focus on, like, these are the kinds of things that I and my agent and my manager feel like are best suited for where I'm headed. So I wanted to put that foot forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was one there. I don't know what it was supposed to be for, but it scared the crap out of me. And I was like, okay, whoever this character is, I don't want to run into him. I don't want to run into him in a dark alley.
Oh yeah, it's funny. Like even with audio description, there's I kind of I do a lot of action. I do a lot of horror, and it's what I've been doing with that is there's a few samples of audio description that are outside of that. So there's a historical drama. There's I did Pulp Fiction, and I don't even know if Pulp Fiction has audio description. And but you know, some of these classic films, it's like I kind of want to, specifically for audio description, I want to put out, like here's something maybe you haven't thought of. Let's try this. Let's see what happens here. And I'm just playing. I'm seeing what lands, and you know, based on audience's feedback, like what do you want? What do you want to hear? And I think that's where I started getting on that know your narrator, that there were 9 times out of 10 I talked to some audiences who are blind, and they're like, I don't know who narrates that. And I'm like, well, do you want to? And it's like my experience with audiobooks, I can know that there's a book that I'd be really interested in.
Right.
And you know, like within 30 seconds, it's like, I can't live with this voice for the next 6 hours. Or, oh my God, I'm going to have, I'm going to have such a great experience with this voice for the next 4 hours. You know, it's like, it can really affect it. And I can't imagine that it's the same for audio description.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can give you an example of one really horrible describer, and I'm not going to name any names or anything. I don't even know who they are.
Good.
I would never do that anyway. First of all. Secondly, you can tell when a describer does not want to do what they're doing, or they don't know what the heck they're doing as far as what they're describing, like as far as like they don't know anything or little about what in the world they're describing because they're not really getting into it. And one of those movies, and I'm pretty glad I got this right, but one of the movies, there were 2. Mamma Mia was one of them. The describer, I don't know who it was, but they just sounded really bored. Notice I didn't say boring, but they just sounded really bored. And they really didn't want to be doing it. You know, it just, you can kind of get that. Like I said, like the way that they come across. So the same as you, like you just said, you can get it from book narrators. Like, I don't know if you ever read, I mean, this might be a really silly question because one who hasn't, but Harry Potter. Jim Dale is amazing.
No, incredible.
And I've listened to 2 other narrators for Harry Potter. Stephen Fry has nothing on Jim Dale. Does a good job for what they give him. but Jim Dale will always be my favorite narrator. Eric Sandvold, who does them for the Library for the Blind, no. It's always going to be Jim Dale for me for HP, because he does such, not only does he do a good job, but he brings you into it, and you don't even 5 minutes in, you're not even thinking of him as a narrator, you're thinking of him as, okay, Hagrid, or, Moody, or Professor McGonagall. He does so well. He matches up with Maggie Smith 98%.
Great. Well, so, like, and I guess, I don't want to go on the negative, but I do want to focus on the contrast, because there are some narrators who are specifically directed by their directors to be kind of outside the story, and it sounds like what you're talking about is something different. But where do you find, and it's all subjective, everyone's got a different answer, where do you find the audio description best lands? Like, do you find that the people who are really into it take you out? Like, if they're too into it?
No.
Or is it...
No, it's the opposite. Like, if you're really into something, we will be really into it. Like, we will want to be immersed in whatever world it is. We'll want to, like, I'll give you an example of a movie that I just saw in theaters. I've seen the movie 6 times. It's amazing. I love it. I just bought it on iTunes. How to Train Your Dragon. The Hidden World. The last movie, cried my eyes out, but it was so good. All of them are amazing. The describer was okay. Let's just put it that way. Like, she did what she had to do. She was kind of invested in, like, 2 different places, but it wasn't... But in this regard, it didn't take me out of the experience in the movie, because I was so into the actual story that it didn't, like, it didn't bother me after, like, 10 minutes. But I still wish she would have been a little bit more emotionally invested, because these stories are just amazing. And as a contrast, and I don't know this other woman's name at all, and I wouldn't say it anyway, but I just don't know who it is. The describer who described Christopher Robin, wonderful movie, amazing, I loved it, did such an amazing job. And the same goes for the one who described Mary Poppins Returns. Again, amazing movie. I've seen it 6 times in the theater. It was so good. But... And because they were invested. They knew how to bring you into it. And by the way, you do too. So just so you know, throw that out there.
Thanks. Oh, and thanks. It's so funny. I kind of put my own narrator hat off. I'm like, I just am thrilled to hear, because there's a lot of different opinions, and there's a lot of people that feel like a narrator needs to step back and keep their emotions back. So it's great to hear. Like, I personally, my narration, I try to give like 5 to 10%, because if I'm too into it, I feel like that puts the spotlight more on the narration and not on the story that you need to be a part of, So I try to, there's some terrible thing, something terrible happens on screen. She dies in her arms. It's like, no, you're not going to do that. You can't say that with a smile.
No,
but at the same time, I don't, there's been times where I've been choked up by being too into the story, and it's like, I need to take that moment, because you as the audience don't need to hear the narrator being like but so there is a balance, at least as far, right? But I get what you're saying. It's like, you still need to be a part of it, and you got to be a part of what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, because there are different describers for Elena, and there's one that we really love, and we're not going to do any names here, like I said, but there's one that we really enjoy. She's amazing. And then, the others do a very good job too, but, and then, obviously for other shows, like for One Day at a Time, that sadly got canceled by Netflix, still mad about that. The describer for that was amazing.
Yeah.
He did such a good job. I didn't even care that it was a guy. Like, because it was a woman-run show, like, it was led by a female cast for the most part, give or take. But I didn't really care about that, because the guy was really good, and he made me laugh, which was really cool. And I like when they do that, like when they can do that, when it's appropriate to do that, and I'm like, this is good. And it was usually with Lydia, with Penelope's mom. Her mama, she's so funny. But she's played by the awesome Rita Morano. Oh my gosh, God bless that woman. She's 88. Still working.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Lauren,
Go ahead.
do we want to tell him about the describer for Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, yes! Okay. And this is hilarious. Oh, God. And for those of you who are 10 and under who are listening to this, mute the mute the speakers for like the next like minute or two. So, okay. Now, first of all, you've seen the 1991 Disney animated Beauty and the Beast. I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. So this describer, he's going along. You know, he did a pretty good job. I mean, I'm not gonna throw confetti at him or anything, but he did a good job for what he had to do. So, if you remember correctly, the scene where Maurice is chased by the wolves when he first encounters the castle and all that, and Philippe runs off their horse. The narrator proceeds to say this, and I am honest to God not kidding you. Maurice runs like a bat out of hell.
Wow.
Up to the castle door. I'm like, what the? And I'm not against that word. Like, I understand there's more milder ones that I don't mind. You know, because I grew up watching ER when I could, before my medical trauma issues, came around. I can't watch it anymore, in the last couple of years. So I grew up, hearing mild swearing on there and not really minding, because it wasn't what I was used to hearing. You know what I mean? I was out of that situation, and I came to understand through living with my dad, living with, that some people, it didn't have to be like that. I mean, my dad never 99% swore in front of me anyway, but the point is, I came to understand that sometimes, it doesn't have to be harmful, but at the same time, I just didn't do it. But anyway, so I was used to it from that, and, from watching a few other, dramas as a teenager and young adult. But to hear that in a description, I'm like, what the world?
It's so funny. At least where I work, I'm not involved in the script writing at all. I actually get the script probably a second or two, as early as a minute before they start rolling.
Wow.
So they give me, for a feature film, it could be 100, 150 pages of a script, and on the script. Do you know? Can I tell you a little bit about the?
Oh yeah, we would love to hear about it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so it's not like a regular script that most movie scripts are like. So the audio description script is only for the words that I have to say. So I get cues that could be visual, so I'm watching along on a screen. It could be verbal, and I'm listening to the headset of all the audio, or it could be a time code. So there's numbers that go along the bottom of the screen that correspond with the whole movie or the TV show. So and there's some other things that could happen too, other audio cues that an explosion or a car alarm or a phone ring or whatever it is, and those are my cues for what to say. And then I have the words, and in the words, it shows me how long I have to say it. So, for a longer cue, I might have 20 seconds. There's sometimes where, and because with audio description, there's no real way to affect it. Sometimes I have to say like 5 words in 2 seconds. And those are called the describers, which is kind of confusing. I've been doing this for a few years, but the describers are actually the ones that write it. They don't narrate. They're just, they could narrate, but their work in writing the script, it's called describing. So the describers are really good about help me know when to come in and when to finish. And otherwise, we've got like, there's one show I have 180 cues in 1 hour, and all of them are very specific, and they all have to come in within the time and in between lines of dialogue, because you don't want a narrator talking over dialogue. That gets in the way. But it's fascinating for me to see how effectively those describers work. So when you say that ran out like a bat. It's like, it sounds like the describer was having a little bit more fun. It was kind of outside of the realms of the story that they were writing.
I know. I was like, I heard it, and I was like, wait, what did he? I mean, I knew what he said, but I was like, wait, what the? And I rewound it. Not, like I went back on the on my music player on the computer, and sure enough, obviously, I was like, oh, this is too funny.
And then I listened.
Wow. Yeah.
How long does it take you to describe, like, say, a movie, like a 2-hour movie?
I'm relatively fast. I'm not real time. It's important that I'm making sure that what I do is right. But for the most part, I'll do a few pickups. There's, I'm getting the script ice cold, so there's times where I make a mistake. But I really do my best to keep in the moment. And when I make a mistake, I ask the engineer to just jump right back in so we can pick up. Mm-hmm. So and there's also adjustments where the script has to change. So the director who directs me, not the director of the film, but the audio description director, will say, oh, Roy, we just finished this first reel. And, most movies could have like 6 reels. It's about 20, 25 minutes, maybe even half an hour. Roy, we just finished this first reel. I've got some pickups. I want to make some changes because now that I hear you doing it, this didn't make as much sense. There was a great example, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn by sharing this with you, but this is the level of detail that the directors for audio description have. There was one line where the woman on screen opened her eyes really wide, and my cue was to say that AWE, she looked, she was odd. She looked odd. And when you hear it, it sounds like she looked odd, like ODD.
Oh, yeah.
So they didn't recognize it because you see the word odd and you hear the word odd, but it comes out odd.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was one of those, like, puns. It was one of those homonyms that's like, oh, we got to fix it. So she changed it. She has a look of awe, which clarifies it. It's a few more words, but it makes the message clearer because... Yeah. As a blind audience, you're going to be, as an audience who's blind, you're going to be like, was she weird or was she kind of amazed? I'm not really sure. And that would take you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see. So to answer your question, I'll finish like my work in a movie can be done in as soon as 4 hours to 6 hours.
Wow.
And I work pretty fast. That's pretty fast. And most of my, I'm doing pretty description-heavy movies. It's not like a drama where it's like he sits down. It's like the dinosaur chases after him and goes through 12 rooms, and 15 other things are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's a lot of words to say. And I'm not trying to say, oh, look at me. It's just the nature of the kinds of work that I do that might be different than another kind of movie.
Yeah. How did you get started doing audio descriptive?
There was it's kind of a combination of a few things. I got to go back to Disney. That great movie ride was a great experience. And if you don't know it, just real quick, it would go through different movie scenes. And there's a host that's on mic that's talking about, oh, here's Julie Andrews from, she's floating above it's describing what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually live audio description on mic. And it's kind of funny. I was doing that, for quite a while. But then when I moved to LA, I was doing live stage readings for writers. And the cool thing about that, I have to go off on this because this is something that's been so helpful to me for my audio description work. Mm-hmm. The focus was not about the acting. The focus was on the writing. It was all a writers group that would bring up 25 pages of their movie or TV show script.
Wow.
And we as actors would read them. And then there'd be somebody else who would describe what else was on the script, like the scenes, like what was happening. Mm-hmm. And with all that, the first few times I did it, I was like, oh, did I do a good job? How'd I do? But all the feedback was on the writing. And it was like all of a sudden my little actor brain went, what? Oh, it's all about the story. It's like we're telling a story here, and we're a part of the story, and that's what we need to do. We need to support it and give our best performance, but it's not about our performance. The spotlight isn't on the acting. So that was really helpful. Wow. And then I do a lot of promo work for TV and some trailers for movies. So there's a lot of very specific timing requirements that have to be with that, and you still have to be. I mean, you're selling a TV show, so you have to be invested in it and be like, how great is this show? Or, what's the tone of it? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of all three of those elements that kind of came together. And when I found out about audio description, it gave me, I really don't see this work as a charity. I don't see it as this like add-on that movies provide. I see it as a part of the movie. And it's great to be such a part of the movie that enhances the experience for audience members who are blind or low vision. And it makes me happy. And I really want to be clear. It's not a charity. It's a part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's what we want it, obviously, to be in the future. Like, you said, that's just there.
I would I've seen ever since I started, using audio descriptive at the movie theater, I've been to 10 movies. I've seen 3 of them in audio descriptive. Because the equipment doesn't, I don't know if a lot of people use audio descriptive, but 9 times out of 10, I'll go to a movie and it won't work. And it's like, I would, and it's like, well, and it's really disappointing, especially for a movie that I really want to see. Like, I really wanted to see Mary Poppins Returns. And the first time I saw it, the descriptive didn't work. The second time I saw it, the descriptive went in and out. And so I actually didn't really get the full experience of that movie until it came out on iTunes and was available with audio descriptive.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And
it's it's the same with TV. Like, we should be able to, like I said earlier, we should be able to turn on a show and turn on audio descriptive and have it be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean...
Would you...
Oh, go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was like, along with that, I've experienced that too. Like, I've gone to movies where the descriptive won't work or goes in and out. I mean, I've gotten passes are all fine and good, but get the equipment working.
Yeah.
Do you see that as being a accessibility issue in the sense of educating the movie theater workers?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you think it's the technical side?
Well,
it's a little bit of both. Meow, tell him about the guy who tried to give you...
Okay,
oh, no.
so I get the headphones, right? And so I get, and it's all good and well and stuff, and I go and sit down, and I put the headphones on, and all of a sudden, this voice just blasted me out of my seat.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what was going on? And I realized that it was the same voice coming from the movie. It was not the descriptor. And I'm like, okay, they gave me the wrong earphones.
Wow. Oh, no.
And they're like, and her grandmother, I love her grandmother, by the way, Mel. I love your abuela. But she's like, oh, why don't you use the thing that makes it louder?
Oh, that time.
Yes.
No, this time. Okay. So that was a different time, but the time that Lauren is speaking of. So we get there, and I look online. I make sure that there's audio descriptive. Okay, and the website says yes. And so we get there, and this is my first movie that I've had since my eye surgery that I had a year ago, and this is my first movie that I've seen that I went to since I had that done. And so I was still incredibly light sensitive. Looking at TV made me nauseous and dizzy. So I was, but I wanted to go see a movie with my grandma. And so, so I made sure, okay, audio descriptive, okay, we're good. So we get to the theater, and I go up to the service desk, and I ask for audio descriptive, and I always make sure to say for the visually impaired, because otherwise they'll give me the thing that I just talked about earlier. And they're like, no, we don't have that, but we have closed captioning. And my grandma's like, yeah, let's try that. And I'm going, that's for the people that can't hear.
Wow.
And I was so mad. I was so mad because, but I mean, it was Mamma Mia too. That's what I went to see.
And then you ended up falling asleep, which
but there was so much dialogue and so much singing that I don't think that the describer would have had a chance to even describe anything. But it was the principle of the thing, It was, I can't go and experience a movie, like my grandma can, because that theater didn't have it, or half the time it doesn't work, and it's just, it's really disappointing. And I mean, the people at the theater, they do try hard,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But it's like they need to like either keep up with the maintenance on their equipment, or have someone there that really knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been my, over the last year, I've probably seen 3 movies in audio descriptive, and I've been to way more than that.
Wow.
So it's a hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the 6th, I think it was the 5th or 6th time that I saw Mary Poppins Returns in theaters, I went with my aunt, and really laid back person, really cool, I love her. So we go to see, this is her first time seeing it, and I asked for audio description. I'm like, yes, for the visually impaired. They had me glasses. I'm like, no, this is not what I need. But, like, what I've been doing in, like, the theater where I live, when I go, and I go to this particular theater because it's the first one that ever had audio description. So, I've been going since 2010, 2011-ish. So, anyway, so what I usually do with them is, like, they'll give it to me, whatever, and then I'm like, can you or someone, if you're leaving, someone who came on, after you, can you ask them to come in about 10 or 15 minutes after the movie starts to make sure it's working? Yeah. And I know, like, I recognize that I'm blessed in that way because I've been going here for years, and they know, most of the people know me, and that's why they'll do that. And in most theaters, they don't, although that should be a courtesy because, you're asking us 5 minutes. But at the same time, so they've done it, and I think it was the 3rd time I saw How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World in descriptive, the description was not working. And I, so they come in, so they were refilling something for me because there was a short crowd out there, so I didn't go out there myself. And so they come back, and I said, they're like, well, we're so sorry, we can't get it working, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I'll just stay, because I've seen it twice before in audio description, so I was pretty good. But I was just like, okay, I'll stick around, because it was like 10 minutes after the movie started. And I didn't want to leave, because I am in a situation where we have a service out here at Transportation that's really bad. I mean, they do what they can, but they have these rules where even if you were to call, they wouldn't be able to get to you for like 15, 20 minutes. And I've actually had situations with Transportation, I know that's not what we're talking about, I'm sorry, but it kind of goes with the same, that I was stuck in that movie theater for about 5 hours once.
Yeah.
And it was just, at one point I called Uber, then they finally came, I lost $20, well, not lost it, but they thought that I would need them, and I called, and I had a really good friend who was nice enough to give me the money, to help, to get the money back for me, because I knew someone who worked there, but it was just really, really, really bad, and that's why I hardly use them anymore to go to the movies unless I know I'm going during the day, because I don't want to get stuck there at night. I mean, they're nice people that work in the movie theater, but I still don't want it, because it's just, it's overwhelming because you have no idea, you know, you can't get home, and it's just, you know, it's harder for us to do that. So that's why I don't do that at night. But my point of this whole thing is that I chose actually not to have them, like, they offered to fix it, but then they couldn't fix it. And I was just like, okay, that's fine. And the main reason I did that was because I didn't really like the describer who did it. Or let me rephrase that. I didn't like how she did it. That is actually what I mean. I'm so sorry. I didn't like how she did it. So that's why I chose not to have it fixed that time. Because I was just like, no, I want to have Hiccup take me through this. You know, I watched enough. I've seen the first 2 movies. They're amazing. I love the TV series, which is also described by a wonderful describer.
She's amazing.
Yes, and she gets so into it. It's awesome. So, like, I know these characters enough to know I can go through this without having it if I couldn't have it. And that, obviously, that time I couldn't have it, so I was just like, okay, you know, I'm good. And I was. I mean, I was able to follow it, you know, for the most part, and I had a good time. But for people who obviously don't have that experience, and like you, Miel, with Mary Poppins Returns, I felt bad when you weren't able to get it, you know, working, because as you saw when you finally experienced it, you know, hopefully you thought it was cool.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. But like, you know, it's just frustrating. You know, we want to be able to experience these movies and these TV shows like our sighted family and friends, you know, and we should be able to.
Yeah, and then there are some TV shows where we're like, we are really glad this is not an audio description. Yes. Only because of the content.
Yeah.
Mainly Good Trouble, because all they do is have sex, and I'm like, really? I mean, there's a few other things that are actually, you know, other more positive things that go on that show, but not very many. And I'm like, really, come on. Like, we're watching it, and we're like, we wish this was an audio description, then we realize, oh, Callie's own, no, you don't want that in audio description. Another Callie, not the same, not, but, no, so, I mean, that's just, so, question about the script thing. When you get a script, and if you're able to actually read some of it, and there's something you either don't agree with or don't believe you need to say, whether it's language or whether it's something else that you just aren't comfortable with, will they change that for you? Like, if you have a good argument?
I see where you're going. It's, you know, it's not, here's where let me give you a few different answers to this. So
no problem.
The first answer is that because it's not my project. When I get hired, I'm there to support the project.
Right,
so it's important for me as a narrator to make sure that I'm supporting the project. And you know, when I agree to do that, I think part of that agreement is that I provide what they need.
Right.
However, at the same time, the relationships that I you know, I've been working with this company for give or take 5 years, and there are relationships there, and I've asked them outside of work where, hey, you know, if I come across something, how do I, you know, can I bring it up? And 9 times out of 10, they're very receptive. However, the way I do it is that during those pickups, what'll happen is if there's something that, you know, maybe it says one character and it should be another. Let's just use that as an example. And it's like, I don't think that it's, I think there's a ambiguous pronoun, or there's you know, there's something that just, you know, again, I'm not a describer, I'm just a narrator, but there's some things that's like, maybe that's worth asking. And I'll never say, I won't say, oh, you're wrong. I'll say,
no.
I'll wait until we go through it, and they'll go through all their cues, and they might have already marked it. And I just don't know. And it's not until they go through the pickups, they're like, hey, this pronoun was ambiguous, so we're going to give it the name, or this name was wrong, we need to recorrect it. They might not catch it at the time. So it's I think, my job to wait until we've gone through that. And then at the end of it, if there is time, I'll say, would you mind if you went back to this cue on, 23 minutes on page 6, there's this, I wanted to ask you about this. And that, 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh yeah, or maybe my chair squeaked. Like I twisted in my chair while I was saying a line, and they were so focused on what I was saying, they didn't hear that there's this, that happened in the chair or something. I'm like,
Jamie, I wonder if Esau made that chair. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. Yeah, right?
No. It's an Elena joke. Her little sister is a genius, and she's an inventor, and she makes a chair in this episode. One of the episodes that squeaks like heck, and I'm sorry, that's why I said that. I was just making a joke. But...
Oh, that's great. Well, I think she may have loaned the chair one of the days that I recorded.
Yeah.
So it was, but it could be that I heard it, or it was right after my line was done, or it was during my line. If it's during the line, they're like, "Oh, thank you for catching that. We'll redo that."
Right.
So it's there really is a give and take, but I do want to be really clear that it's not. I feel it's. I know you're hearing me, but I just have to say it. It's not my job to question, but it is my job to bring my best work. And how I bring my best work is making sure that I'm presenting the material and the story in the way that I think that the company that hired me and the production intended. And so, I think that's where I have some latitude. But the reason I'm being so hesitant is I've heard stories of narrators and they've been fired because they're like, "Oh, this isn't right. You need to change this." And it's just like,
I didn't mean like that. Maybe I should have worded it differently.
Oh, sure. I didn't mean to think that you did.
No.
In case anybody else is listening, I want to be clear.
Oh, you're good. Yeah. No, but I know what you mean about the name thing, because I don't know if you've ever heard this series, but it's Charmed. And I mean the original, not the remake that's very bad. Anyway, so the original, it's all in descriptive or on a legal site that we download from. It's not up there anymore. They decide just to do movies now. But anyway, my friend was able to download some of these, and I'm listening to them, having fun. I found a really awesome narrator who I love. He's from Scotland. Great narrator. Oh my gosh, I love his voice. So I'm going through all this, and now this is a show that I've seen both with description and without. And when I saw without, I could see. So, so I'm listening to this, and all of a sudden the narrator says something to the effect of, pretty porcelain page walks by, and I was thinking, okay, your favoritism, I think that's what that is, because I'm pretty sure in that episode is actually Piper who walks on the hallway of the Great Hall of Magic School, and I'm like, it's not Paige is there, but she wasn't in that scene. I remember that clearly, from watching it before. And yeah, and I'm like, okay, but then you could tell some of the narrators on that show which sister they love the most, because they will either make that mistake or they will just heap pretty adjectives and compliments on whoever they like. But you'd be like, Piper, Paige, whoever. It's just hilarious.
Oh boy.
I'm like, oh, this is too good.
That's great. Well, that kind of leads me to another question, I probably should start getting to wrap up. My phone's starting to die on me a little bit. But I was curious how you feel, because you mentioned that there's sometimes different narrators on the same show, and how do you feel about consistency of narrators, whether it's like a series of features or the one TV show? Can that be a bad thing?
With us, we get attached to narrators a lot, depending on their voices and how they do things, and that's the case with Elena, and we've gotten to kind of, know their voices and, expect certain ones to do, and when they don't, we're disappointed, because some episodes, we think that certain narrators should do them because they have a better grasp on some of the material. So it's sort of like that. But for the most part, now you take Netflix, like One Day at a Time, that had a narrator that did everything. Like there was no change. So things like that, like Netflix shows, like that's a different thing, but that's fine. But with series that are like on networks and, things that have different, when you can be consistent and have the same narrator, it's actually better, because then we don't have to worry about if they're going to mess, not like that, but if their style is different, or we're not going to get like used to this or whatever, what have you. So yeah, consistency does mean something to us.
Yeah,
But obviously we understand that they can't get the same person. I mean, it's fine, but yeah. So.
I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like, it's like getting used to a new, that's like an adjustment.
It's like when they switch Darren's on Bewitched. No, I'm kidding. Just had to put that out there.
Sure, yeah, it's a great example. But yeah, that means something. I'm glad to know that means something. That's great. That's really great.
So any last minute things you want to ask him or anything like that, Becca?
I just want to thank you for, being a narrator and, helping us experience shows and movies, along with our sighted friends and family, because, it sounds like that it takes a lot of time and effort to do this, and I want to thank you for everything that you do for the blind community.
Thanks so much for saying that. This is something I really care deeply about, and I want to make sure that I'm bringing my best work. And also, I want to make sure that audio description in general, for all narrators and for all the people who do appreciate it, know how important your voice is in helping get the best quality excellence when it comes to this stuff. I really want to make sure that quality stays up, and it's my job to make sure I do everything I can for me, and also help educate those who might not know about it to do better. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to spend some time with you both.
Oh yeah, no problem. We really want to thank you for coming on. I echo everything Becca just said. I mean, it's amazing. You're doing an amazing job.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
And we would love to have you back, like whenever, if you want to. I mean.
Oh, thank you. Please invite me again. I'd love to.
Oh yeah. So, we'll let you go because we know you said you want your phone to die. So, it was really great to have you. Yes.
It was awesome to talk with you and to get a little insight, into what goes into describing.
Oh, thanks, Becca, and thanks, Lauren. It's a pleasure to hear that you're doing your show and keeping it going, and it's great to be a part of it. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Adios. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks again. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Roy Samuelson.